the time. Satanism is on the rise in America and around the world. It shouldn't be a surprise to people who listen to this channel. Obviously, I've talked about the after-school Satan program. I've talked about the indoctrination of getting children into witchcraft and sorcery with these movies, with Harry Potter and these board games, and all of those things that are going on. But it's becoming more and more mainstream. More and more, websites and ministers and stuff are starting to realize what is going on. And this is an article that I found that was recently written by at the website WND.com, which is they get a lot of web traffic. They get, they're ranked in the tops in America and globally. They're at least in the top 50 in America, 200 globally. And they have an article up talking about the rise of Satanists and another sign of America's fall from God, which I've been talking about. In this article, there are ministers who talk about how Satanism is on the rise and how Christianity is falling and America continues to fall away from God. And it's important that stuff like this gets written, because these are the types of things, if people see it, it might snap them out of their trance and realize that they've been getting lukewarm in their faith, or thinking that, these other things in life are important that aren't, such as social status and what they wear and all this stuff. And they don't even realize what the Bible tells us about spiritual warfare and how we're in it. Because we are in spiritual warfare. And people really who, get lukewarm in their faith, or people who don't pay attention to what's going on, really think that Satan is almost like a work of fiction when he's not. They don't realize that there are people that worship him. They kind of push it off and say, oh, like what, rock and rollers pretending to worship Satan, like Marilyn Manson or any of these people. Oh, yes, they wear black clothing and black lipstick. And they think it's a big joke, but in reality, it's not. Because people are declaring themselves Satanists. They are following the church of Satan. They're reading the teachings of LaVey, and they're reading the teachings of Crowley, and they're indoctrinating children to get to that point through using the media, through using Disney, through using, these board games. All of this stuff is an indoctrination to get them to that point where they see that magic is real, and then they want to practice magic and perform magic. And it's a gateway into joining the Satanic Temple or the Satanic Church, who pretends to be atheists, and everybody goes, oh, they're atheists. No, they don't really believe in Satan, like a bunch of idiots thinking that when their logo is the, the upside down pentagram and the Baphomet and all of that stuff. And they talk about Satan. They say, hail Satan, but we're supposed to believe that they don't. It shows you how dumbed down society is, that they can literally stand there and say, hail Satan, and then go, yeah, but we don't believe in him, and have the Baphomet statue there and go, yeah, but it's just a symbol of something. We don't believe in human sacrifice. Or, the fact that they're outside abortion clinics attacking people who are protesting abortion. Oh yeah, no. They're not there because they're promoting human sacrifice, and that's why they care so much. So it's ridiculous. But this article has some Christian leaders in America talking about the rise of Satanism, and I wanted to read some of the article to you so you could hear what's going on. And they're talking about the elementary schools that have been targeted by the satanic clubs that they're trying to put in the after-school Satan program. And, Christian leaders started to wake up just from seeing that. People said, this is a bit ridiculous. And they said, listen, the Bible has talked about these things. We know that there's going to be a falling away. So one of these ministers goes on to say, for a country and people who have historically valued life more than death, truth more than deception, and the rule of law and common sense more than tyranny and hedonism, the rise of Satanism probably comes as a shock. But for those who have watched the promotion of occultism, spiritism, demonism, and hedonism in the media in the name of pluralism are not surprised. It is simply more evidence of our culture's fascination with narcissism, death, and rejection of common sense. It goes on to say, of course, the Satanic Temple says it does not literally worship the devil. Instead, Satan and demonic imagery are used as a formidable weapon to fight for separation of church and state, which is a complete lie. That is how they get away with this stuff. And that's what they're taught. The teachings that they read from Crowley and from LaVey, they talk about how they're supposed to hide this. Okay, that's been their plan all along. Like I've said in so many videos, these people who were performing witchcraft and rituals, satanic rituals, and they were continuing to get ousted. People were exposing them. People, whether they were, chasing them off or whatever they were doing, they were exposing them. And they realized the only way that they were going to be able to, live in society was by hiding this stuff. And then when they realized that the television and mind control and how all that stuff worked with the advent of the television, they realized that they can indoctrinate people with this stuff and use mind control as a way to get them to inadvertently start performing it, practicing it, and worshiping it. And worshiping Satan inadvertently, whether they know it or not, or just flat out worshiping Satan, which is what these Satanists do. One of the ministers who goes by the name of Jonathan Kane says, it is yet another manifestation of America's fall from God. It is no accident that we are seeing more and more displays of Satan in America's public life. This is an unprecedented development in American history. This could not have taken place in earlier days, and it's no accident that this is happening in the same America that is increasingly removing any display concerning God or faith from the same public square. The guy goes on to say, and it is another sign of the increasingly powerful position and brazen stance of evil, immorality, ungodliness, and anti-Christianity in the new America. That which in former days existed only in the shadows in American culture is now in the spotlight and center stage, and seeks to drive that which was formerly in the spotlight and center stage of American culture into the shadow. So in other words, it's a reversal, right? The Satanists are now coming out of the woodwork, coming out of the dark, coming into light. People are inadvertently don't even realize that they're worshiping these people who are Satanists, these false idols. All of these famous people are witches. They're part of covens. They're part of the secret societies that worship Lucifer. And this is becoming, cool and accepted. People, they don't have to hide it anymore talking about it because people laugh it off. And Christianity is getting pushed into the shadows because people are embarrassed to be Christian because of what the media has done, which has turned people against Christians, make Christians look like bigots, make Christians look like hateful people. This whole interpretation that people have of Christianity, they've tried to make it as embarrassing as possible. The kumbaya, singing in circles. That's what they've done. The media has taken Satanism out of the shadows, put it in the spotlight, made it look like it's fun and it's great and they love everyone and they don't judge. They're not really bad people. Of course, they leave out the human sacrifice and all that stuff, which is what Satanism is all about, even though they lie and continue to lie about it. And they're making Christianity something that's going into the shadows where it's almost embarrassing to admit you're Christian. That's what they're trying to make it. So this article talks about a lot of the things that I've talked about on this channel, the perception of Satanism in society, how they are making it seem that they're really this atheist group, but there are Christian leaders out there who, through realizing the after-school Satan program and seeing the other things going on, are exposing it and pointing it out, and pointing out the hypocrisy that is the Church of Satan or the Satanic Temple, because it is a giant hypocrisy. It's a gigantic lie, okay? There's people out there who call themselves atheists, who believe in evolution and believe in all this stuff, but don't believe in God and the devil. They're not calling themselves Satanists. They're calling themselves atheists. So why would a group of atheists suddenly call themselves Satanists and then claim that Satan's not real? For marketing purposes? I don't think so. The article ends by saying these events have end-time significance. This world is ripe for the acceptance of ascension of a satanically inspired global leader who will promise peace and freedom while he systematically eliminates all who disagree with him. A temple honoring Satan is just one more step towards that end. And we already have these satanic temples. We've already seen the Arch of Baal in New York City and around the world in London. Okay, we see these satanic temples popping up in almost every state. Right? We've seen it in how many states have I talked about it? Whether it's Oregon, whether it's Washington, whether we're seeing it in California, and they just opened their new headquarters in Salem, Mass. So it is spreading virally almost at this point. And more people are joining it, and you could see the numbers growing, and you could see them getting into the elementary schools and the indoctrination, and it already has started, and people don't seem to care that much. That's why it's important to point this stuff out, because the Satanism and the after-school Satan and the targeting of, if we're talking about 4th, 5th, 6th graders, not only is it just disgusting and disturbing, it should be something that triggers an awakening in someone else, where they say, why is that there? What is the point? And people should be able to see through the lies, because all you have to do is look at what they post on their website, how they talk about all these satanic movies and how great they are, the books that they read. Okay, look at the statue of the Baphomet. Look at all this stuff and how they're targeting young kids. It should be easy to connect the dots. So again, as I continue to expose the Church of Satan and Satanism, I hope others out there will as well, because we need as many hands on deck to start waking people up to saying, listen, this is spiritual warfare. Satanism is on the rise, and America is in a falling away period. America just day by day is becoming more of a godless nation. And it's not just because they're censoring Christianity. It's not just because they're making a mockery of Christianity through the media. It's because more and more people aren't interested in Christianity because of the brainwashing through the media, because of the interpretation of what Christianity is all about and how they mock Jesus all the time on all these shows. Okay, that is how mind control works. So we have to wake people up and show them the spiritual warfare is real. Scriptures tell us this. Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Okay, spiritual wickedness in high places. So think about what represents high places. People who control resources, money, the media. Okay, this is about spiritual warfare. And my hope is that people will see this after-school Satan program and see that, wow, there's a Church of Satan in your state. And people will start saying, all right, this is real. This is going on. These people who claim to be atheists are not atheists, because they wouldn't be supporting all of the readings of Satanism. They wouldn't be walking around wearing the upside-down pentagram, which represents black magic on their shirts, which represents human sacrifice and witchcraft and sorcery. And they wouldn't be fighting to take the 10 Commandments away and to put up a statue of the Baphomet in all of these states if they didn't care so much about Christianity and want to fight against Christianity. So this spiritual warfare that's going on is real. And I hope that people can see it through, hearing about the after-school Satan program, seeing all this stuff going on around them, and they can start waking up themselves, their families, and others around them. So don't give up the fight when it comes to waking people up. I know it's difficult. I know that, sometimes you might say something and someone will roll their eyes. There's a lot of different routes you can go to awakening somebody, but the after-school Satan program, to me, should be the easiest way to start waking up Christians to what's really going on. Whether they're lukewarm in their faith or they're just oblivious to what's actually going on, that should be a start where you say, listen, this is what's going on. Okay, the scriptures told us about this. We have Satanists in schools going after elementary school kids. It's not because they just want, equal rights with Christians, and they're not just doing it to spite Christians because they're going, oh, well, they're allowed to do it, so we're allowed to do it. That's not why. They're pretending that's why. They're pretending, oh, it's just about freedom of religion. We want to make sure all religions can get into schools if Christians can. It's not about sending a message to our government or to our society. It is about an indoctrination of children with witchcraft and Satanism. So keep up the good fight. Make sure you spread the message. Share this video. Share the videos I've done on the Church of Satan, or just share your own opinion with others on it. Share articles. Okay, we need people out there to see what's going on, because this is real. They are really going after kids. They are really on the rise as they continue. Like this minister says, they've come out of the shadows into the light, and they're pushing Christianity into the shadows. And we can't allow them to do that. We have to continue to try to lead souls back to our Father, because that's what this is about. Okay, this is about spiritual warfare. I know that this is written. I know that. I'm not trying to change that. What this channel is trying to do is wake people up who are lost souls and get them back on the right track, which is the track to God, which is picking up their Bible, which is having faith in Jesus Christ, who is the only way to our Father. He's the way, the truth, and the life. So as they continue to rise and they claim Christianity is going into the shadows, we need to make sure that we lead as many people, or make them aware of what's going on, and lead them to our Father, because every soul matters. One soul matters. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.